have an old 2013 Rubicon, which, when the apocalypse comes, that's the car I'll take. Because as amusing as some of the go fast cars that Matt and I both like, the fun thing about the Jeep is it's kind of unstoppable. I mean, it's just really, really fun.
It's so much fun to drive, and actually, I hadn't driven the Jeep for years and years when I got into the driver's seat of this beast. And it is a beast.
Those on YouTube are seeing it right now. It is awesome looking.
It is, yeah. I love the red one that they gave me in the press car, but it has a 6.4 liter V8, the same engine that's in my Challenger. So just mountains of torque and horsepower. And when I got on the freeway, I just put the pedal down and I forgot that Jeep steering, like you have to turn the steering wheel a few revolutions before the tires know that the car wants to change direction. And it's not like a normal car. So it was a little scary at first, but after a day of getting used to it, I was like, man, this is so much fun to drive. Barry, it's a different experience than driving a regular car, just in the way you sit, the way it operates, the way it rolls. Like it's different.
Plus, it's got a drag coefficient of, I think, 100.
What does that mean?
It's a brick.
It's a brick.
Right. It's literally that. So you need 400 horsepower. And the car that I'm driving now could not be further opposite of the design.
Right.
I have the Nismo Z.
The what?
Which is a little, it's the new version of the Z, their track Nissan Z, their track version of it with, first of all, it's very slippery. It's just a teardrop that slips through the air. And that is the polar opposite when it comes to steering. Very little input needed, very precise steering. You used to have to spend multiple six figures to get steering this good. It's shocking how much fun this car is for how
I should clarify. So Barry's also test driving a car this week, and you actually have the pre-production version of the Z.
Right.
I drove the Z. We're showing pictures of the one I drove, which I absolutely fell in love with. Although I will say that part of the affair that I had with this little Nissan Z was the manual transmission.
Oh, yeah.
Which was so much fun. I mean, I thought it was easily as good as a 911.
And by the way, shout out to the courtyard of the Bloomberg Global Headquarters.
That's
in
where we
New York
film
City.
all our
It
cars.
makes a great spot to showcase a car.
But Barry, so you're driving the souped up version. It's really a track car, the Nismo version. What do you think of it? Do you like it?
So about 10 years ago, I had the original Nissan 370Z, and that was kind of a GT. It was a stick shift, beautiful car, a little sexier than this version, but it was a GT. It's kind of big, kind of heavy, and about 330 horsepower. This car looks much better in person than it does in the photos. It's very purpose-built. It's very focused. As much as I prefer a stick shift, this 420 horsepower version with the 9-speed dual clutch transmission, every time you step on the gas, it's like you poked a hive of angry hornets, and it's just a lot of fun. And for honestly for normally this sort of performance, $60,000, you're looking at used cars. A new version of this, I actually took the car over to my local detail wrap shop that does car washes and wraps and things like
Ceramic
that.
coating,
The
PPF.
kids went nuts. They lost their mind. First of all, this is like there are none in the country.
Yeah, it's pre-production.
I've been very careful because I don't want to damage the only Nismo Z in the United States. But second, you get up to extra legal speeds quite rapidly, and
the sound eggs you on. I drove that for a couple days before Barry got in it, and the one thing is the sound makes you want to go faster, no matter how fast you're going. I love the sound of the engine.
Yeah, it's angry, and it urges you to go. And it is, when you see the pictures, it kind of looks a little plain, and then you see it in person, and it's like, oh, this is really a very handsome car. I found it very planted and very Not a punishing ride. Typically, a track car, you feel the lines on the highway. I drove home in bumper to bumper traffic from New York City for about an hour and a half, and it was not uncomfortable. You put it in standard mode, in regular mode, and it's sort of sedate. And then you put it into sport or sport plus, and you awaken the demons within. It's a lot of car, and it's a lot of car for the money.
Yeah, so so the Nissan Z, I think we can agree, is a great bargain. And I think it's a Porsche Cayman competitor easy, even though the engine's in the front, not in the middle.
By the way, they describe it more as a Mustang or a Camaro Challenger.
It's a race car. It's not a muscle car, And those I know have evolved into race cars, but they're still Camaro is certainly still a muscle car.
Very much so.
But I want to point out, though, Barry, that the Jeep, on the other hand, it is not a bargain in terms of the price. So the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 392, $93,000 to start. That's before a delivery fee.
That's not a typical Jeep buyer, is it?
It's so expensive. And what I wanted to ask you about, Barry, what do you think about this inflation, which, by the way, it's not going to turn around, but Jeep, to me, it's another level on the kind of new car price inflation that we've seen. They're trying to do something, I feel like, from Stellantis headquarters. They're trying to make Jeep into a luxury brand.
So, after the pandemic, when you went out and looked at various sports cars, Ferraris, Porsches, things like that, what you ended up having is used cars were going for the same or more than new cars. Very much a pandemic related event. But go back to the 10, 15 years before the pandemic, you look at a brand new 2014 Jeep Rubicon, gussied up about 40 grand. You look at a 1-year-old Jeep Rubicon, about 40 grand. So Jeeps are notorious for holding their value. And this isn't, you want a GT3 911, they only make so many of them. They're cranking out a lot of Jeeps. And despite that, even before the pandemic, they weren't easy to get. There were no discounts to be found. There are no bargains in the used car lots of Jeeps. So we'll see if the new Bronco and some of the other competitors are going to take a little bit of market share away from them, and maybe the prices will shift. But that was always shocking. My 2013 Rubicon, I'm comfortable buying a salvage title. I don't recommend people buy a salvage title. But it was a flood car. I just replaced all the electronic harnesses, and for half of what I would normally pay for a used Jeep, I got a 10,000-mile Jeep. I mean, it was orange. It's still orange. I just had to get used to that color. Right. But that's the thing about Jeeps. It's a cult, and people love them.